Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Hustle and Grind. Cammy P here with the lovely Joe Madden. We've had a crazy day just with sports and everything else, especially the NHL. We've got a great guest tonight, Chris Wassel with Rotoballer. He knows his NHL. Well, he knows a lot of things, but tonight he knows his NHL. He's going to be focusing on that. And we've got some crazy games going on. Right now, the Pittsburgh Penguins are losing to the Islanders. I thought they were going to put up a better fight, but they really didn't. They almost looked like the Edmonton Oilers in Game 3 here tonight.
No, they didn't look that bad. Let's not even go there. Okay, so you guys, if there's all of a sudden outburst and I jump up and cheer, it's because Pittsburgh has scored. But before we do that, are you ready to bring Chris in?
I would love to bring Chris in. Let's bring him in.
Good evening, everybody. Doing good. Doing good.
Good. Hey, quick question, and I just because I'm newer to this, Rotoballer. What is Rotoballer?
Rotoballer is like a big, giant sort of fantasy and daily fantasy site. Basic way of putting it, there's a humongous group of us in all four major sports and some not so major ones too, if you want to call that. Yeah. But our main focus is mostly baseball, football, and basketball. But that doesn't mean that we don't do hockey, golf, Australian rules football, NASCAR, Indianapolis, the IRL, some Formula One, some guy might do on occasion because I might have raced a Formula One race car in the States. Lots of fun. Yes. I've been pretty lucky. I can say in my life I have raced the dune buggy equivalent of basically the old speed buggy racer from the old 60s cartoon. And it looked exactly like it too. It was actually painted that way.
That's awesome.
And I got to race at the NASCAR track in Vegas, which wow. That's pretty crazy. Even in a regular modified street car, that's intense for most people. So I can't imagine what it's like going 200 around a tri-oval. So yeah.
What speed did you get up to?
About $150. And at that point, the guy is looking next to me like, wait, that you're not supposed to get up that fast. And I'm like, yeah, my dad used to say it all the time when I was racing his Chevelle. So it's not the first or last time. So yeah, it was good in that way. But obviously hockey is the main story tonight. And
absolutely. So okay, we've got a great game going on right now with the Pittsburgh Penguins and the New York Islanders. This is not how I saw this game going. I'm going to be completely honest. Right now the Islanders are up 5-3. What are you thinking for this game, Chris? Did you expect the Islanders to take the game tonight?
I expected the Islanders to take the game. To be truthful and honest and all sort of in the interest of transparency, I had this happening last game too, by the way, to be perfectly honest. See, here's the game theory in this with the playoffs. Sometimes the zigzag theory does not work. And in the case of, say, the Penguins and the Islanders, there was sort of a tangible momentum in this series that you kind of felt going into Game 5, and it took a little while to get started. Now, Pittsburgh particularly came out big thrust, scored a couple goals, looked like they had all the momentum. Everything went. That was it. Now, it wasn't that Pittsburgh wasn't generating chances in Game 5. It's just nothing went in. I mean, you could have basically thrown 10 Pittsburgh skaters on the ice and nothing was still going in. It was just one of those weird, fluky type of things. And to be fair, the Islanders weren't exactly scoring themselves either, and they had a lot of transitional chances in that game. So you expected the over to hit at some point, and it just did not. Now, what happened tonight was exactly what was supposed to happen in Game 5. It was the expected outcome. The expected goals for both teams is probably close to 3 at even strength at this point. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I know basically it was it was multiplying like Bugs Bunny rabbit counter at one point in the first period. So you knew that this game was going to go over, and at some point the Islanders were going to take this game, for the lack of a better term, over, because there was just this overwhelming theme that, gee, 5.5 really for this type of game. And you could see the goaltenders. Ilya Sorokin for the Islanders, to be fair, had 3 starts, 3 wins. His high danger save percentage, which basically means shots that are in close or what they call the home plate around the net, was .955 through three games. Wow. A very good goalie is around .820 to .850 in that range, like elite. So you can't even put into words like, well, that's got to regress. And sure enough, that did as well.
Yeah.
But very much like Game 5, except this time Pittsburgh got to 3 goals before it just stopped.
Yep.
And then the Islanders took over. The difference is this time, the chances that the Islanders were able to create going the other way, a few of them went in. Whereas in Game 5, it took until Tristan Jarry got the bright idea. Hey, let's try to do that up the middle thing again for the 3rd time in overtime. And finally, the 3rd time it burnt them. So that's why I say to people, look, this is not a fluid type of betting in the playoffs. It gets to be very strange sometimes. And there are a lot of times where you just sit there and go, momentum-based, zigzag theory.
Yeah.
Pandemic. So there's a home crowd aspect to this, like up with the North Division where you have no crowd yet. Well, you will next week. Yeah. But it's like, how do you balance all of them at once? And one of the big mistakes that a lot of us made, including myself, was figuring, no crowd. Winnipeg's not going to feed off of their home crowd. Edmonton should have just enough. That sort of thing. Even Montreal, you figured, well, Montreal won Game 1. They can ride Carey Price at least to another win in the series.
Yep.
That's not looking like it either, because their problems have magnified, much like the Pittsburgh's, just one's defensive and one's offensive.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the Islanders have taken this series. The game just finished. So I did lose the bet today, but I like the Islanders better than the Penguins. So I'm happy to see them moving on, to be honest.
The Islanders beginning of before the series started. We knew the Islanders were going to win. I thought Pittsburgh would have put up a little bit more of a fight tonight, but obviously with the information we have now, we knew that wasn't really going to happen. I mean, the Islanders were down 3. I got to give all the props to the Islanders. They deserve to win this game. They were down 3 separate times, and they came back and won. So they did a great job.
Yeah, Islanders after Game 3 was like a plus 175. I took it. I just was like, you know what? It's like, I shouldn't, but I just have this weird feeling that this series is going to go like every other demented Islanders Penguin. It's almost like watching Devils Penguins during some regular seasons where it didn't matter how bad the Devils were. The Penguins come into New Jersey and just get spanked no matter what. And Sidney Crosby has said it on more than one occasion. I swear the Devils have a blueprint against me and a way to play against me that somehow works. And it doesn't matter who is in charge. It doesn't matter who is playing. But for some reason, they follow this, and they follow it well.
Yeah, they've got in there. They know what's going on, too. I also find hockey a little bit of a thing. It's a mental game, no different than golf. They play a team that they just don't do well against, and it's in their heads, right? So it's like you were saying earlier, like when you can't buy a goal, you could have 10 players on the ice and still not get a goal because you've got in your head that goalie's hot and you're not going to get anything by him. And I've seen it lots of times, and it's painful to watch sometimes, but good for them, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Ilya Sorokin tonight. First, I think 7 shots, he gave up 2 goals.
Yep.
I think he gave up 1 goal in the next like 30 or 32 shots after that.
Yep.
Same kind of thing in Game 5. He gave up, let's see, I think it was 2 goals on 16 shots, and then stopped the next 35.
Yeah.
So I mean, and the games were almost the same, except for a few more goals. But the scoring chances, I mean, this is funny. I just happened to, God bless advanced stats in hockey, just because it's now such a 21st century thing where it's quick. It's not just something that you can sit there and go, oh, okay, it's this, it's that. Here's the funny thing about tonight's game. And if you looked at this, you would go, oh, there's no way that this was the case. The Islanders actually, through 2 periods, high danger chance-wise, were actually pretty even with Pittsburgh tonight, unlike Game 5. And yet, if you put the 2 games together, you would have thought it was the same exact game. That's how eerie the playoffs can be. And then there's, well, the other games tonight, which if you're watching Florida and Tampa and you expected goals tonight, I apologize.
It's not happening.
It's still
right?
1-0.
It's 1-0 right now.
Yeah, I think it's still 1-0. So what do you think, like, today? Like, do you think the first round's over today?
Well, I mean, basically what you'll have left, it looks, you don't want to say Tampa's going to hold on because, look, that game can go from 1-0 to 3-2 in, like, minutes.
Yeah, we just saw that.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a common theme tonight, and then obviously you have Vegas and Minnesota tonight. Nobody really knows what's going to happen there, and after all, Max Pacioretty is the perpetual game time decision. He has been the entire series.
Yep.
One of the reasons why he can't go is unfortunately the injury that he has is a nagging enough injury to the point where it all depends on the day.
Yeah.
And we had that just with Carolina with Jacob Slavin.
Yeah.
Slavin just came. He just came back last night, and he was a game time decision for a couple of games because he couldn't put any pressure on his leg properly to skate in a game. He could skate in practice. He could skate around pretty normal, but when it came to push him in warm-ups at a closer to game level pace, he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was just no way.
So between the Lightning and the Panthers and the Knights and the Wild, which teams do you think are more likely to go to Game 7?
Look, this is one I've been saying all along.
Yeah.
Vegas and Minnesota almost seems predestined for a 7th game. I hope it doesn't in a way, just because, look, I hate to be selfish about this, but I need the rest.
Yeah.
It's been for those that don't know and how comical the pandemic had become. We went straight in from one season to the next, as far as sports. Yeah. So January started, about mid-January started hockey, 4 months. Okay, condensed schedule, no problem.
Lots of games.
After about the first, I would say after the first, maybe not the first month or two, but by about month 3, you're just sitting there going, oh God, this is just ridiculous. Now, there was a random Sunday late in March that had one Sunday game. I went outside. I seriously forgot what outside was like. And people just look at you like, well, what do you mean? I was like, we've had 5 or more games for the past almost 3 months.
Yeah.
So there's slates that you have to cover from a fantasy standpoint, a betting standpoint, and then obviously I'm a beat writer for the New Jersey Devils as well. Yeah. So I'm trying to I'm covering them in the middle of a pandemic while they have 20 players being quarantined. It's not fun.
No.
I can tell you I was excited for those rainy days. I felt better sitting inside watching my TV instead of looking outside and going, oh, it's so beautiful out there.
And it would taunt people. I mean, I said it to people. It's like, you'd have people asking you on Twitter and social media and such, okay, so what are you betting for Monday night's game? What? Oh, there's games. Oh, yeah, there's games tonight. Okay,
oh, shit, there's games tonight. Yes, I'm supposed to do
It's like, darn, it's like every other night for the past 100 and something. Okay. Yeah. And they would ask, people were at least forthcoming about it. They would ask, well, hey, what's up? It's like, what's your thought process and everything else? And I'd be like, look, I'm gassed like everyone else. I couldn't imagine what it's like for the players to a point. Yeah. I mean, I played in a few semi-pro leagues where, you played 3 games in 5 nights on a frequent basis. Yeah. But not at an NHL level. It's 2 totally different things. Yeah. And for the average bettor, we thought last year was difficult. Mm-hmm. I'd almost argue that there were times this year where it was almost ridiculous.
Yeah.
You just couldn't. There were days nights where you could not get a gauge on anything. And I watched it. There's a guy from the Philly area called Philly Pete. Love the guy dearly. He's unbelievable. And yeah, his wife is like obviously the baby's been born since, but this was a couple months ago. His wife was around 8 months pregnant, and he's like, "So Chris, I can't sleep." And I'm like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Baby's kicking my wife in her sleep. She's rolling over and hitting me." And I'm like, "That bad?" And he's like, the next day, he's like, "Chris, I went 1-10 yesterday. I lost like 7 units." He's like, "I took probably the worst bath I have in 5 years." And I'm like, "Just sleep, Pete?" "No." "Okay, go like in another room or something tonight. Something, anything. Trust me on this. Take a day. Don't even look at the slate. Don't even pick any, maybe pick one pick or something. But take the day off."
Mm-hmm. Needed a reset.
You need a reset.
When you get tired, you get in that funk. You're gonna just make the wrong picks no matter what. Like you're gonna think like, okay, well, I'm gonna go with this one, but something's telling me I should go with this one. And it's tough to make that choice, especially when you're sleep deprived. And you just make some random choice, and you end up losing all the time. So you're right. You got to take that break.
And look, people think that this doesn't happen to the most experienced bettors. I've watched it this year, probably worse than maybe any year I can remember in the last, say, 8 to 10 years since I've started doing this. I mean, let's put it this way. There are enough people that I couldn't thank enough on this show that I legitimately could sit there and talk until tomorrow. Yeah. Just because there's that many people that I've come into contact with just out in Vegas alone that were, I wouldn't say just helpful, but bent over backwards just to give somebody a helping hand that, like, well, maybe didn't know quite about this, but knew they needed to get into this because, as we know, New Jersey was first.
Yeah.
We started this whole crazy fight about 10 years ago to get the PAPSA fully repealed. And whether you like Chris Christie or not, most people don't, but he was an instrumental part in getting this repealed finally, which opened the door for a lot of revenue to go into New Jersey. That's but awesome. More importantly, it opened the door for everybody. And yes, it's excruciatingly slow for some states. I see it every day. I write for some of the places that aggregate the news out, and it's like, oh, Florida is still fighting over this. California is still fighting over this. And it's the same arguments that I've seen for about 10 years in both states. That's how scary this is. But it's like with hockey, everybody. Anybody that's listening out there, when you get into the playoffs, this is important now. Now we're almost through round one. Wait till you see round two.
Yep.
Because now, for example, North Division, you're going to have, I think it's a limited fractional capacity. It's not going to be like what you see in the States where basically you're almost got full capacity everywhere.
It's a very small percentage.
I thought it was 10 originally. But I think they might have like upped it in some provinces. So I have to check on that.
There's only be Winnipeg and Toronto, so Ontario and Manitoba, but it's going to be very low percentage. It's not going to be like watching the Islanders game tonight with the Islanders Jets. You can't hear even anything going on the ice because the Islanders fans are just going crazy. It's not going to be like that, but it's cool they're letting some people in.
It's nice. I mean, look, I know the guys up from the Illegal Curve radio show up in Winnipeg, and other than maybe busting their chops for not having an airport in Winnipeg, they are excellent in how they cover everything up there. Yeah. And one of the big things that they said in the Edmonton series, and I know, was Winnipeg's attention to detail, in spite of Paul Maurice, who can drive anybody to drink, but it was their attention to detail that won that series. It wasn't their defense per se; it was just the attention, that focus, and of course Connor Hellebuck, who is a winning goaltender. I mean, we kind of lost sight of that when a lot of us, including myself, made picks in this series. I thought Hellebuyck could keep it close, but you just figured that Edmonton was going to find a way to score because a lot of Winnipeg's top forwards went into the series in pretty prolonged slumps.
But I wouldn't blame, I wouldn't say like, find a way to score. Yeah, they did score some goals for sure. The problem was they couldn't defend. Like Edmonton just seemed to give up. They do 20 minutes of play and then 40 minutes of on their heels. And that seemed to be their game plan from the beginning. And I don't know what it was. That's just what I saw when I was watching all the games. Like I said, I'm a huge Oilers fan, but it seemed like there was one strong period in every game.
No, it's true. Now, one thing to put in, it's kind of like Pittsburgh the last two games. The second halves of each game were the exact same. They just could, for whatever reason, they could not score. And in Game 6, the mistakes that they did make cost them more than once. That was the difference in tonight's game, for example. And look, you have the Islanders. They're going to go in, and Lord will look. That may be the worst series to try and get a handle on for several reasons. One of them is Tuukka Rask is playing lights out right now.
Yeah.
The second part is Boston has this thing called scoring balance that they've only had once since Don Sweeney became a GM 6 years ago. So they have at least 3 scoring lines, and you could almost argue 4. And that's something that the Islanders have not really faced. Now, you combine the two of those, Boston is one of the few teams in the league that has a top 10 power play and a top 10 penalty kill. Yeah. The Islanders can't say that, obviously. Their penalty kill is second to none. It's incredible. I sometimes thought they took games off just because they were bored. But it is true. I mean, when we saw runs on it in the last 3 seasons with Barry Trotz and the Islanders, where they would run off 15, 20 games where they have a penalty kill of 90% or greater. That's insane. Those are numbers you just don't see. So they're going to have their work cut out for them in the series. And the most obvious question, who did the Islanders start in goal for Game 1? I mean, obviously Semyon Varlamov did not play well against Pittsburgh, and Ilya Sorokin took the reins. But if it's Boston putting up 2-3 early goals as opposed to Pittsburgh, and that happens more than once in the series, then you have to ask, what does Barry Trotz do?
Yeah, that's a tough first game, and you're right. That's a huge decision on the first game for sure. I personally, I would stick with which one's hot at the time.
You have to go with the hotter goalie.
Yeah,
but he's also 25. Well, almost 26.
Yeah, he's still young for a goalie, though, right? Like, so it's especially with Boston, they're a whole different team, right? They're going to come on strong. You got a lot of great players that are going to be throwing pucks to the net, and he's going to be on point. But you got to stick with the guy that's hot right now. And it's unfortunately, you're right. Like, if you make the wrong decision and they go down that first game, it's a big down in the first game. Like, Boston's a killer.
Yeah, it's bizarre because obviously, look, Washington was the 2 seed in theory, and little else. Yeah. So that's how you kind of have to look at it in this sense, or the opinion. They were more like a 3 or 4 than any other year.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
This year, because of the way the schedule kind of compressed, they were able to. Let's be honest. They were able to coast through the last part of the regular season. They really were.
Yeah.
So they went 7-2-1 in their last 10 games, and people went, "Oh well, they're doing pretty good. They're scoring at still over 3 goals a game. Their defense and goaltending is decent enough. They'll get past round 1 or at least make it interesting."
Yeah.
And anybody that you talk to that followed the sport was like, "No, it's not happening. The only way that they keep the series close is if they play this crazy style where they hit everything in sight and basically hope that Boston gets tired."
Absolutely. That's what they're relying on, but it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. And once Boston got a 2-goal lead for the first time in the series, that was it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people point it to the Game 2 overtime win, but it was really Game 3 when they had their first 2-goal lead that you sat there and went, "That's it. It's done."
Yeah, you could see it over the players' faces too. They knew it was done right there and then. What did you think of the Avalanche sweeping the Blues?
I was a little bit surprised. I figured maybe St. Louis would put up a little bit more of a fight. I mean, if you go back the past 2 or 3 seasons, St. Louis is a real pain in the neck team for just from a logistical standpoint of how they played for Colorado. And the biggest difference in this postseason, well, one, David Perron had COVID, or we think he had COVID. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It never really was confirmed. And now that the Blues are eliminated, we'll probably not know until he says so. It doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah.
What Colorado was able to do in those 4 games is they were able to play downhill hockey like their captain does. Nathan MacKinnon may have the most vicious first stride in the NHL in the last 20 years.
Yeah, watching him gives me goosebumps. He's absolutely incredible out there on the ice.
I'm very fortunate to say this. I was able to cover the 2013 NHL draft in Newark.
Okay.
It was the one-day draft of death because it was all 7 rounds and one shot. I mean, it was crazy in every way. Yes, it's the year that Boston forgot to make a pick in the 7th round.
Oh, that was the year.
Yeah. Then they had to go back. Get the assistant GM from Boston, and you could hear it because by then almost everybody left. So you hear that go, get that motherfucker right now. I mean, I can't believe this happened. The guy you could hear it from the NHL's like, it's the 7th round. This isn't even on the air anymore because they cut it off.
Yeah.
NHL Network cut off their coverage after like about the 5th round because it had gone on for so long.
Yeah.
So needless to say, they make everything that happens there, and you just go, really? That's it. But Nathan MacKinnon, we watched him about 30 minutes before he was picked, and he's doing drills. And I went to somebody, and I'm like, when he figures out that his wrist shot is probably almost as good as Joe Sakic's, this league is screwed. Like seriously screwed. And in the way that not so much during the regular season, but in the playoffs, because his game it's custom made for playoff runs. Yeah. And of course it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt that, let's see. They have one of the most mobile defenses in the league. Ryan Graves is your slowest defenseman. Yeah. That's pretty sobering.
Yeah.
Never. Right? Now, so if Vegas takes round 1, how do you think Vegas will do against the Avs?
This series is literally going to come down to back and forth goaltending. Yeah. And you got to think that it's going to be Marc-Andre Fleury versus Philip Grubauer, barring some meteor hitting Vegas or Colorado.
Absolutely. I couldn't see it any other way.
Now, Grubauer has kicked it into another level, and that was unexpected too, because remember, he tested positive for COVID, and he definitely had symptoms because the first week or 2 after he came back, he was kind of up, down, and all over the place from a physical and mental standpoint. Now you go, he had COVID? Really?
Yeah.
He's playing even better than he was before at the start of the season. And I would argue in no uncertain terms that if he had not gotten COVID, the Vezina race would be extremely close between him and Andrei Vasilevsky because, look, Colorado plays a style that, they don't give up that many shots, but the shots they do give up are usually some pretty medium and high-quality attempts. So, that's something you have to consider. Obviously, Colorado has the better power play.
Yeah.
They have the defenses are about the same. The goals allowed are pretty reasonably close. Look, Vegas won the Jennings by a nose over the Islanders. So they have that. But the problem with Vegas is their special teams struggle against certain teams. And we saw it in last year's bubble where their power play just short-circuited mid-round against Dallas. Well, really against Vancouver at first. And they were able just to score enough in Game 7 to win that series. And And then game 1 against Dallas, it was okay, and then it just went. That was it. The lights went out. They had little or nothing left. They could have had 20 shots on goal, 50 shots on goal. It didn't matter. They just could not score. And you see that this year a little bit too. Whereas a goalie like Philip Grubauer could get in their head. It happened right before the end of the regular season. It's why Vegas is not a 1 seed.
Yeah.
Game right before the end of the year, Vegas has 37 shots on goal. Okay, it's a lot of shots. It's a good, they had a good amount of chances. They had 11 shots on the power play. 7 alone were high danger chances. Grubauer stopped every last one of them. And after one of the last saves, he looked over at Mark Stone, took his helmet off, and smiled.
Of course he did. I missed that. Look, I'm going to have to go back and watch that.
Grubauer is, in some ways, a junior version of Patrick Waugh. You'll see like little bits in some of the Colorado games, like if they go to commercial like a few seconds late, they'll pan over to Grubauer occasionally. And while he won't make the funny faces of, say, an old devil like Marty Brodeur, you'll see some goofy things every so often. And it's just his way of lightening the mood. And it works for Colorado, and it works immensely well. So if you go through this series and you look, Colorado has the advantage, not based on season. Throw the season matchup right out the window, except for the last game of the season, probably. And if Colorado throws up one of those games where Vegas gets 35, 40 shots on goal and Vegas loses 3-1, it's a long series for Vegas, and it's not good.
Absolutely. Who would you like to see win the cup?
Let's see. This is always a fun one every year. Not the Islanders, obviously. I can't do it. I know there's friends of mine. Yeah, Kyle Palmieri got traded. He's a nice enough guy and everything there, and it's like, no. I'm just not that way. Now the Devils aren't going to get a pick from the Islanders until the 20s. It's like, crumble, whatever. But honestly, there is a part of me that wants a Canadian team to win it, just so I don't have to hear it anymore. Unfortunately, I can't root for Toronto, so that eliminates another team right there. So this is rough. I mean, there's a part of me that wants to see Winnipeg go on some crazy run.
I'd love to see Winnipeg win. I don't think they can do it, but I'd love to see it. Like, there's 3 Canadian teams I will not watch ever because I hate them all. It's Vancouver Canucks. The fans are a bunch of whiners. The Montreal Canadiens, French Canadian, they're a bunch of whiners, and the Ottawa Senators. They're never going to do it. So I'm a big fan of Winnipeg or Toronto moving on. So I think like Winnipeg, yes, I'm agree with you 100%. I'd love to see Winnipeg win this, but I don't think they have the artillery to do it. I think Toronto maybe does. So any Canadian team at this point that's left, I'm on board with. Minus those 3 that I talked about.
So there's them. Obviously Colorado, just because I kind of want to see how not so much how they celebrate it, the cup win, but they're more or less constructed as a slightly more mobile version of the team that we saw last year win the cup in the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah.
Except you have your number 1 defenseman is still in his early 20s. The veteran of the group is in his late 20s. It's a look. Let's be honest. Colorado may be an even more fun version of Tampa Bay than Tampa Bay thought it could be.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Tampa Bay still has the artillery. They still have plenty. Look tonight. Who scores the first goal for Tampa? The guy that just got fined for a slightly questionable hit.
Yeah.
None other than Patrick Maroon. And I swear I saw it. I hope to see the YouTube video. Him sitting on the bench going, "Find this." But look,
interesting.
It's fun to see some of the back and forth. That's one of the unique things with the pandemic that people don't realize. You're able to see a lot more of the players' expressions than you ever were before because you're now focusing on that more than the crowd. See, we obviously getting the crowds introduced in is like, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
not used to it, right?
I mean, the first game I covered for the Devils, there could only be 1,600 people in attendance.
Yeah.
And it was still surreal. So you didn't really have the fan presence that you do now. Whereas I think tomorrow's game in that, what would be 13,000. You know, the last couple games have been, and you notice the difference.
Oh, you
And
definitely.
I can't wait for this Winnipeg Toronto series just for people to be like, oh, there's fans. Okay, we got something. There's some tangible nature to this.
You know what
Absolutely.
I'd like though is I'd love to see Tampa Bay win with Patrick Maroon, and as soon as the Oilers, trade him, he wins two Stanley Cups in the next few years after they trade him. It'd be pretty funny. I love Patrick Maroon. I've always been a big fan of his. I think he's a great guy. I think one of those guys with that facial expressions, the guys that just go out there and generate that fan base, bring the crowd in. He's one of those guys. And then now Tampa Bay's up 2-0, so Stamkos scored as well.
You knew it was coming. It was just one of those things where it was a matter of time. Florida has not shown much in the way of offense tonight at all. They had a few chances early, and then they kind of just, for the lack of a better term, I'm looking at it now, and it's kind of goofy. When you look at some of the overall numbers and go, well, it's even looking, kind of, but Tampa dominated the first. There's this about 5-minute period from the midway part of the first to almost the tail end of the first, where I swear I was just watching Tampa sit around in the Florida off defensive zone and camp out.
Yeah,
and that's a difference in this series. Tampa could sit there and just turn it on and off whenever they want to.
Mm-hmm.
Florida can't quite do that, where they can turn it on, but they don't have the restraint of knowing when to go up ice and when not to. And they've been caught up. The 2-0 goal will be an example of that. People will see it in a little bit, I'm sure, where it's like, should I stay or should I go? And they probably should have stayed. And they went and got, of course, Stamkos made them pay for it.
Yeah,
that's often how Stamkos plays too.
Yeah,
I mean, he has his office just like Ovechkin does.
Well, he'll make you pay. 100% he will.
One of the scariest one-timers I've ever seen is Stamkos. Stamkos' one-timer in his prime. Okay, maybe Ovechkin's is a little higher, but Stamkos has a dip in his shot, whereas Ovechkin can sit there and throw anything from a 50-mile-per-hour softball to a 100-mile-per-hour howitzer.
Yeah.
And I watched him do it, and where Ovechkin has a little bit more of a sense of humor. We had a few times, we were privileged enough to be able to watch him during warm-ups a couple of years ago. They let the press down there.
Yeah.
And Ovechkin's like, watch this. We're looking, and he's like, goalie goes in the net. He's like, I'm going to totally fool him. Flips the puck up. Puck spinning around and around. Like shinny almost. Just casually just bops it out of the air in the net. Holtby just looks at him with like this 1,000-mile death stare, like, well, what the heck was that? He's like, points to the back. He's like, the press says hi, Braden. Sorry.
Awesome.
Oh, that must have been a fun thing to see.
These are things that you just can't make up, and that's why I say to people, it's like, look, this time of year, you go through every sport. The best playoffs, by far and away, are the NHL playoffs. They just are. I mean, this year,
there's so much fun, and there's 7 games.
Anything can happen.
Yeah.
As we see it already. I mean, we're not even through the first round, and we've seen well, let's see. Did you check your bracket and see? Oh, okay, that one, no, that one. I mean, I think the only series that I got right games wise was Colorado in 4.
Yeah.
That's it. Every other one, in some ways, I was off.
It was a sweep, but I never saw. I would have thought the Oilers would have won 1 or 2 games, if not 1. They were the favorite to win. So there's a few of them for sure, but these guys. We didn't call I didn't think Minnesota would do as well against the Knights either. So
yeah, I thought Vegas would take a
4-5 game tops.
Yeah,
I figured that was 5 minimum.
Yeah,
it was 6 if Talbot stole one. I just stealing game 1.
Yeah,
it's like
shots were ridiculous. Talbot killed it.
And it's weird too, because after that first game, I thought, oh God, maybe I was wrong. And then Vegas, of course, goes and reels off 3 of the next 4, and it's like, whew. And then they completely come home and clunk game 5 at home.
Yeah.
I mean, when's the last time you've seen Marc-Andre Fleury give up 3 goals in the first period at home?
Oh, I couldn't believe what I was watching.
No one could.
Not with Fleury.
No, you couldn't have expected that, and that's why I said it's like, well, wait, not so fast, because you just never know. Now, a couple interesting wrinkles that are going into this right now. At least remember, Joe, you asked me about rumors, so we're going to start with the simple ones first. Okay, there is a rumor that round 2 for at least Colorado could start as soon as Saturday or Sunday night. It is literally just a logistics type of thing. Obviously, they're going to open in Colorado. It's just a question of do they give Vegas an extra little bit of rest because of the other series that are sort of being staggered on in. Obviously, both Winnipeg and Toronto both played back-to-backs. Winnipeg having a little bit more rest. Toronto will probably close out the series tomorrow night.
Yeah, probably. See that happening.
Can't see unless you get 20 Cole Caulfields out there. That's about and Nick Suzuki's. That's about Montreal's only chance. But you have to think they close out on Thursday. They're not going to start Winnipeg Toronto on Saturday. So if that happens and Vegas closes tonight, then Colorado may just play on Saturday night, and Toronto Winnipeg would be. See, it's weird because Canada really wants that hockey night in Canada. Canadian teams on Saturday.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a debate at the NHL offices for at least the next 48 hours, especially if those series if Vegas closes out tonight, and then obviously Toronto closes out tomorrow. They want their Toronto to have as much rest as possible. You never want to say that, but they're thinking it at the very least.
For sure, but it's always the last people to finish their series. I mean, they're the ones who get the least amount of rest.
Normally, yes.
You have an extra couple of days, and that's it. It is what it is. But yeah, Hockey Night in Canada is a staple in Canada. It has been for I can't remember how long, 50, 60 years. Like, it's our biggest day of hockey of the year is Saturday in hockey. Sunday's not really a big day for hockey. Sunday, and I'm an NFL fan. That's for that, not for Sundays. So Saturday is usually packed full of games, and we love it. So I think, like, even if they close it tomorrow night,
it's going to be Saturday. Somebody told me it's like, all right, 7:30 start in Toronto, Saturday night.
I can see that happening.
Absolutely.
Now this ties into the other thing that Joe touched on. Oh, Ron McLean. Oh, come on.
It's brought up to Joe.
And it's not, for those that don't know, this is not the first or even second time.
Nope.
Because basically, if you believe rumors that are out there, the first time something like this happened, Don Cherry fell on his sword.
Absolutely.
It was Ron McLean's joke that he wrote in.
Yeah.
That's if you believe the rumors that are out there.
Yeah.
And basically, you know, all the things you want to say about grapes and such and that, he fell on the sword.
Yeah, I love grape.
He really did. So look, he's old fashioned. A lot of what he says comes out a certain way, and in this in time and era, unfortunately, there are a lot of things that you just cannot say ever.
Yeah,
and
Travis Tarpoff is one of them.
And look, I know Jennifer Botterill very well, and it's just like, I talked to her, and she's like, "Yeah, it was a lot worse than it looked."
Yeah, like
there was really. She's like, there was no way of
sugarcoating. There's on there too, and there's just like they're trying to was a very awkward laugh after that. It was just like, what were you thinking, Ron? But hey,
he wasn't. It just got blurted out. And
well, but no, he knew what he was talking about. That
No, he wrote it in. It wasn't like he didn't write it in. It was right
he
there.
said it too cleanly. He said it too cleanly to just be made up on the fly like that. So yeah, maybe he should go. Who knows? Especially if there's a rumor out there like that where Grapes had to fall on the sword for Ron. So
yeah, there's just certain things out there that don't add up. You know, through the years with Hockey Night in Canada, and you just kind of wonder, well, maybe it is time for him to go.
But I have no issue with that. I mean, Grapes says something like, "You people, done." But he can make this joke like this, and it's up for debate. I watched him tonight on in between periods of the Islanders and Penguins, and he's on there doing like no big deal. So yeah, maybe there should be some consequences to this.
I mean, look, my dad did it once, and it was like one of those things where he said "you people," and he didn't even didn't dawn on him. My dad was as old fashioned as they come in some ways, but I mean, he had more friends of. Yeah, I mean, it was hilarious. I mean, his funeral. It's like I saw all these people, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
He knew all these people. Wow. Okay. So it's like, all right. But this was a little, obviously, what happened here was a lot different.
It's a lot different.
And not the first time. See, if this was something that happened the first time, you could kind of go, well, okay.
Yeah. It was a mistake, like you said, not written in, just kind of quickly off the cuff, like Joe said. But it was definitely. It was thought. There was a premeditation. You hate to say some words like that, but it's true. There was a premeditation to this. He thought it out. Yeah.
And that's the even bigger problem. I mean, it's a sobering problem. I mean, we have it here with the hockey in Newark, and we have all sorts of initiatives through the Devils. And yes, I know the fan base gets angry with this team because it seems like at times they focus more on everything else but the ice.
But the ice, yeah.
But you have a responsibility now that you didn't have 10 to 15, even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That you did not have then. To fans, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, red, brown, doesn't matter your sexual orientation, anything, period. You know what matters? You're treated as a human being.
Yeah.
And in this pandemic, that's something, at least down here. No, it has not happened. It's been worse. And I think the sports world in some ways coming back has been a little bit of a wake-up call to not just politicians, but the people. And that's something that's decided, and not just us poor little sports bettors out there that are trying to make our way. Yeah. But look, it's nice to be back in business pretty much fully. I will be the first one to admit that. But at the same time, there is a social responsibility that we have now that we didn't have 100%. In March of 2020.
Yeah,
it's absolutely. a huge quantum leap.
It has been.
And for the better, we need to be better people. That's for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on, especially with COVID and after that, and being stuck in your house and stuff. A lot of depression, a lot of different things. So you have to be very careful what you say, what you do, and honestly, it's just being respectful of other people and their beliefs.
I lucked out. I lucked out. Unlike a lot of people, I was really not stuck in my house. For those that wonder, it's like, well, what do you do when your primary source of income goes completely in the proverbial toilet? You go out and work for Amazon, of course.
Yeah.
So I did that for 9 months, and I dodged COVID probably about, let's see. I figure in 9 months, I was tested about 43 times.
Wow.
I was tested at least once a week, basically the entire time I was there.
How many nose ones did you have?
Too many. My nose still.
That would be terrible.
I will say this. The first few were really as brutal as advertised. They had the one basically where you had to hold up, like basically up to here.
Yeah.
So basically the bridge where your eyebrows meet,
Yeah, it goes right
felt
up.
like the swab was all the way up there.
Yeah, that's all.
Now later ones, you only had to go about an inch into your nostril. That wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
So
and then you got the throat testing after that.
There was the rapid throat test. Much better, obviously. You didn't have to go all the way down the throat like some of
Testing your
the
spinal cord, yes, maybe a little bit better.
right through.
Yeah.
Not so pleasant.
You feel it back here.
You felt that tickle right there. I mean, the hockey players were funny about it though. You sit there and you kind of have to laugh. They're like, yeah, that one stung a little, and I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, oh, you had that one too. Great story about this. For those that kind of laugh at this a little bit, and it's a little bit of the part where you go, "Ooh, this is really scary." March 10th, Devils Penguins last year.
Yeah.
Didn't know it was going to be the last game I was going to cover. I go down. I go to see my girlfriend at the time. I was like, "Look, I have to go cover. I'll be there. Don't worry." I had to wait. Turns out, person that was with me the Saturday before to cover the Rangers Devils game at MSG found out he had gotten COVID. Now we didn't know how bad this was this was just literally it came over our phones.
Yeah.
This person had COVID and we went home. There was about 5 or 6 of us that were with him that Saturday night. We went home. I get a phone call from the vice president of the Devils at 10 to 8 the next morning. So how fast could you be here? You should have been here 20 minutes ago. Okay, why?
Yeah.
So-and-so tested positive for COVID. We fear that it spread through the entire, basically, media corps.
Nice.
And worse. So
Wow.
How fast can you be here? Now, I'm down near Princeton, which is about an hour and a half south of Newark.
Nice.
In traffic.
Yeah.
I get there in about half the time. I'm doing about 95 up the Jersey Turnpike. I'm surprised. Well, I didn't realize it then, but there's no cops. So that was a plus.
Nice.
I get there, every single Devil is being tested.
Oh, wow.
But at the time, no one really thought much of it.
Yeah.
It really was a casual. You went.
Like March, at the beginning of the
you went. You got your test, and
yeah.
in our cases, it was a lot faster than what most people's tests were then. It took like a week to 10 days.
Yeah.
I got it back that evening. I went 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and by that evening, I knew. Unfortunately, it was negative. The guy that was next to me tested positive, along with the reporter that he covered the game with.
Wow.
So go figure. And that's why I said to people, it really was a lot more than just one of these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was more common sense.
Yeah.
Don't sneeze on somebody. Don't, wash your hands constantly.
Yeah.
Make sure you're not in it too enclosed of a space within somebody. I mean,
put your fingers in their mouth, that kind of thing.
Well,
I think that should be a rule forever, though.
And it's true, though. But there's so many stupid habits that people, and I have them too.
Yes.
I used to chew pen caps and all sorts of crazy things.
Yeah.
And people were like, "What? You chew pen cap?" Yeah. Yeah, because I was stressed. So I chew a pen cap.
Yeah.
Or you chew like, I don't know, whatever, or you did this, or you did, or I mean, back in the old days, it was spit, the tobacco chewing gum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I admit I tried it once or twice and didn't like it, but there were people in press row that would, like, when I covered a baseball game, that it's like, looked like Sidney Crosby's mumps from 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was like, what's this thing? And it's like, they have a big wad of big league chew, like, in their mouth. That's like the size of a small state. And it's the same thing with hockey. you'd have your guy, you'd have your older press box guys with a big giant bottle of whiskey right in the press box. I mean, mind you, while they're writing a story, like, you can't do that now.
No, not now. No, that's all changed. It hasn't changed that long ago either. We're talking about like early 2000s. This stuff started to change for not being able to even people doing regular jobs. They'd have drinks on a weekend at their job towards the end of the day. Now you can't do it because everyone can. If someone gets in an accident, they can sue the company or whatever else. So a lot of this stuff has come to a halt where you can't have like the commentators having a bottle of whiskey with their drinks, even though it lightens them up, it gets them fluent, talking, stuff like that. But no, you can't do that anymore.
I remember Brian Burke saying to me once or twice when they were doing a lot of the coverage on Sportsnet. Yeah, there'd be a bottle in between commercial breaks.
Yeah.
Now, no. Now obviously, because he's president of operations of the Penguins, he can't do that anymore. But like you said, it was one of the things that you kind of took note. I saw it. I mean, I used to see it where guys in the press box were betting on hockey games like during the game while they were doing doing their articles.
They're no different than everybody else. We're
exactly. People are human.
Doing stuff, and it's if you're in a place like that, you can do it. But you just can't do it anymore, right? So
it's like there are certain like logistical like sort of restraints. Even on myself, for example. One of the things I say to people, it's like they ask you, well, why don't you do anything that's say more high stakes betting?
Yeah.
And the first thing I say to them, I'm like, look, my oldest brother literally got so addicted to gambling, he lost everything. I mean, he had a house, condo, 2 cars, truck, you name it. He had a job that paid him $120,000 a year, American tax free.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh wow.
He basically made like the equivalent of at least $250,000 a year.
Yep.
And lost it all.
Lost it all.
Wow.
Because of gambling.
Yeah.
And I'm here basically, there is an irony to it. I can't deny it. There's a little feeling of it almost being borderline hypocritical, but there's a way of where I'm responsible with it. This is what I do, and this is how I handle things.
For sure. There's no difference to having a drink. You have to do it in moderation, just like gambling, drinking, smoking, anything anything that's not good for you, you have to do it moderation. So you have to find time. And if you
don't eat like a 20-inch pizza in one sitting like I do.
Yeah.
Well, you'll start seeing these weird things on Twitter, like, where are these food pictures coming from? And it's like, yeah, I know.
Had a bad day, guys.
It is true. It is true that I do legitimately in New Jersey have a food challenge named after myself.
Nice.
One of the diners up in West Jersey, the Clinton Station Diner, which the back end of their diner is out of an old 1930s train car.
That's awesome.
Oh, that is super cool.
It is wild, and a little colder every time in the winter when you eat in there. But it just you don't care at that point. You're eating in something that's a historical landmark.
Yeah.
But the guy dared me to eat 2 of their huge turkey legs. It's basically like almost half a 28-pound turkey. He's like, all right. He's like, I'll tell you what. You eat these. You eat the trimmings. Dinner's on the house for your entire family. No pressure or anything.
So you ate 14.
You couldn't say no, could you?
I couldn't say no.
You ate 14 pounds of turkey?
Yes. And I wasn't tired.
Oh.
I went right for the dessert. See,
you're not a food baby.
I could have. I could have had 2 or 3.
At all. The next day, I'd be like, nope, he's not my friend anymore. Actually, like the next 3 days. 14 pounds? That's crazy.
I can easily down a couple bottles of sangria, no problem.
14 pounds though.
What the weird thing is, most people when you hear like success stories of people that lost a whole bunch of weight, and you ask them, well, what's your alcohol tolerance like? And they're like, it's not so good. That never changed, and I don't know why.
Good.
Now, if I sat there, and I know I had it done because one of my friends locally is a cop.
Yeah.
They wanted to see not how drunk I could get, but to see how it would affect blood alcohol level.
Mm-hmm.
I drank about 2 bottles of sangria. Down. There's a nice sangria place down the street from me. So he's like, all right, we did breathalyzer. He's like, how are you standing? You know, this thing reads like 0.3.
Yeah.
He's like, you're Boris Yeltsin drunk. You shouldn't even be able to talk to me in anything resembling a straight sentence. He's like, yes, you're buzzed, but he's like, your sentences are still coherent.
Yeah.
Most of the way.
Yeah. Wow.
And
So,
sangria is usually in between, depending on what version you get, in between about 9 and 12% alcohol. It's a lot of alcohol for 2 bottles of it.
if you're in New York City, it's about 15.
Is it 15?
There's places that definitely up it, and
15%, 2 bottles. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Like I say to people, it's get out there if you can. Support your local businesses in any way, shape, or form at this point. I don't know how it's like where you are. I know up in parts of Canada, it's about as grave as it was in New Jersey this time last year. I understand that completely.
Yeah, everything's shut down still. Alberta's opening up. Manitoba's still shut down. Ontario's still shut down.
Yeah.
There's nothing really going on. There's no restaurants, no nothing. So you're kind of in your house. If you have a job that requires you to immediate services, then you can work. But besides that, we're all working from home. So you're kind of stuck in your house.
Or basically like what we were doing last May. Or, well, in my case, I was commuting. I was commuting to work and commuting back comically. It was interesting. I could tell you where I was when they said hockey was coming back, and I sat there with like this dumb look on my face, like, really? How am I doing this and working 50 hours a week at Amazon? And they're like, so I was fortunate. One of the first guys that hired me back, Ryan Bonini of USA Today.
Yeah.
And he allowed me to work a little bit until I got basically my legs, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then I was able to move on to a few other places and mix things back in gradually.
Which is nice.
And if it wasn't for people, like I said, if it wasn't for people like that, I would have lost my nerve.
Yeah.
Because
fantastic, man.
You don't think that it can affect you, and then it's too late because it did already.
Affects everybody. Can't do anything about
It's like I don't know, Florida right now.
it. Florida.
I can't believe this. I mean, I'm watching this and it's like, huh? It's like, what is going? And of course, well, Minnesota and Vegas. If you didn't bet the under in that game, I don't know what to tell you.
It's a bad one.
I took the baseball equivalent is the no run for the NRFI, or the no run first inning.
Yeah.
So there was a prop out there off one of the offshore sites for the no NGFI, or the no goal first period in this case, or NGFP. And I took it at like plus 250. I'm like, why the heck not? I'll toss $10 on it.
Definitely
so the bookie there is now trying to figure out how he's going to pay me in American. I was like, it's only $25. Come on, it's not that bad. That's why I made such a small amount, because it makes it easier on them when they try to convert the numbers.
Yeah.
And then of course there was obviously the Islanders for the first period over, which if you didn't bet that tonight, it was just one of those where it's like, oh, come on. Oh, you should have known. You didn't watch Game 5 at all. You didn't see all those chances going back and forth, especially from Pittsburgh's side. You know goals are going to come. Pittsburgh is going to come out with a flourish again, because they're going to try and stamp their authority on the game. And then they'll run out of gas. sort of.
Yeah.
And they did, and that's exactly what happened. They just ran out of gas. They couldn't finish the game.
But you're gonna see that as the rounds go on too. Mm-hmm. That may be one of the bigger things where teams with a lot of depth, like Colorado. Not to mention that they're obscenely young.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
They're fun to watch.
They're fun to watch. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they're gonna give up chances.
Yeah.
Do you think conditioning's a factor due to COVID and the time that was down?
Absolutely. Look, Tampa benefited from it last season with the bubble. There's no question about it. The Islanders benefited from it with the bubble. And it's weird because there's certain teams that really didn't have that many cases. Now, Tampa, if people may not remember this, but Tampa right before they went into the bubble had several cases.
Yeah.
I mean, they had that one small little outbreak, and people started panicking legitimately. Like, well, is this playoff even going to get underway? And the fortunate thing for them is they were given enough time. All the players that tested positive at that time were asymptomatic. And then they go on and, I don't know, they just casually go and win a Stanley Cup. It was no big deal. No, not a problem. Just went on, won a Stanley Cup. We're the absolute betting darlings of the world for a summer, right through the playoffs, especially against the Islanders when they put up 8 goals in the first game. And I'm not going to lie, I smiled like I was one of those, like, had the cat and the canary look on my face, like, yeah, this is good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that could you save a few goals, by the way, just a casual, but that's going to be the thing. You're absolutely right, Joe. Going onward in these playoffs with playing 56 games in basically 115 days.
Unbelievable.
Now next year, key part in this, and people need to pay attention to this. Pretty much almost a normal schedule. They right now they're saying maybe a week or two late.
Mm-hmm.
So we're starting about mid-October, and we're going right till my birthday, which is mid-April, is usually when the playoffs start.
Yeah.
This year, obviously, a little bit different. Freaking playoffs on my birthday. I mean, that's tradition as old as time. Just one of those things. So expect a little bit more stability next season, at least. And we'll have a better idea of how teams are, and there will definitely be better trending, especially as far as betting next year. You're not going to. I mean, touts that have been in this business for 20, 30 or more years. I know one guy that took such a bad bath the first month and a half. Mm-hmm. He was actually about to give up on the entire NHL season. And I never thought I would see it. This guy was usually somebody that hit, the average 58 to 60% of the time, with a lot of plus unit bets, and did an incredible job of research. And it seemed like every night he would have 2 or 3 bad beats. Not just one, but usually 2 or 3. And go ahead.
But did you find there was a lot of underdog situations where it was looking at the situational game for the favorite that just wasn't in their favor? Because I found there was a lot of underdogs this year, like the Sabres, where, I can't remember who they were playing the one game, and they came out and won it as like I think they're plus 179 underdog. But it was looking ahead at who the favorite was playing. I found it was easier for me in those situations this year.
There were definitely some spots where you could pick and pick on. I know. Look, the Devils' first period over for about 2 months straight, kind of like a couple of years ago at Chicago, where you could sit there, and it got to the point where Vegas got wise to this, and they set the first period over at 2.5 to one night, and it freaked literally every bettor out from coast to coast. Because it went suddenly from 1.5. It didn't stop at 2. It went right to 2.5 because somebody got ticked off in Vegas and clearly was tired of losing money and said, nope, that's it. And not only did they do that, they put the 2.5 at like -125. So it wasn't like it was even money at least. They went all the way to -125, which is unheard of for a first period over.
Yeah.
So they were sending this was their way of sending a message. Hey, no, you're not doing this anymore. And we had that this year even with New Jersey. They popped one at 2 at -130 one game, I think, just to play with people. And that's when people, and now this is where the intelligence of the bettor comes in.
Mm-hmm.
The money shifted that night, that afternoon. 70% of the money was going towards the over. After that switch, 90% of the money went right back out.
Wow.
And you want to see Vegas people just go. And that's the difference now between now and even 2-3 years ago. The access to information is incredible.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely is. I felt like Vegas was trying to trick us the other day with the Oilers game, though. The line movement on that, all of a sudden they were such a favorite. What did they go up to? Like -112, and they had lost the last 3 games, and they opened at -104. I was like, there is no way Edmonton's taking this tonight. It felt like they wanted us to believe they would.
Now here is the theory on what they usually do for situations like this, where a slight favorite suddenly loses, 3 in a row.
Yeah.
They're not going to make them an underdog no matter what in the 4th game, because they're thinking, there's an urgency factor. There's no way they're going to get swept, but they just didn't account for the fact that there's no crowds.
Yeah.
There's no push, whether it's cheering or booing or etc. There's no push up in the North Division playoffs. So the reason why I say like the Montreal and Toronto series is as dead as it is because there's no crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other way to slice this. And Toronto will be happy to sit there and take the air out of the building. But there's no air to be taken because Montreal does it all by themselves anyway.
Well,
You can't score for anything.
They screwed the pooch on this one, so it is what it is.
Exactly, and that's the way people have to look at it. Did I take Montreal in game 1? Yeah, I sure did. Yeah. I wasn't stupid. No, I figured if there was one game they were going to steal because they were the most rested they had been all season.
Yeah.
They had played 25 games in 41 nights and were absolutely gassed. That week rest had to feel like an eternity. So yeah, game 1, they're going to come out, play their system, play their way. They got a lucky shorthanded goal. I mean, let's face it, Paul Byron slipped, tripped, and still found a way to get it by Jack Campbell. And then in game 2, reality hit, and it hit like a brick wall.
Yeah.
No matter what Carey Price did, it wasn't going to make a difference.
Well, yeah, Carey Price can't do everything either.
No, I mean, look, we had that in New Jersey for a few years with Corey Schneider, where we probably wasted away 2 or 3 of his prime years just on god awful teams that could not score or do anything. So we can relate to this. But like I said, going ahead in the playoffs, I'm looking forward to see if Connor Hellebuyck can shut down Toronto as well, because there are some little tendencies, even with the way Toronto is playing now, that if they think that Alex Galchenyuk is going to keep scoring like this in the playoffs, no, it's not happening.
Hellebuyck is awesome. I love Hellebuyck. I remember when he first came out, he was this guy, just they threw him on the ice, and he just stoned everybody that first year. It was just so fun to watch. He is a fantastic goalie. I love Winnipeg Jets. I'd love to see him just like stop Toronto. But either way, I'd love to see the team to go on, to win.
Now the fun part for people, and I joke with them, is this: you'll see Hellebuyck after some games. He looks like a Bond villain. He really does. The hair kind of stands up in a certain way, and it's like, He might have a future in acting that he doesn't know about yet.
He's awesome. I like
but he has a sense of humor that's unique. I mean, I know most people will say that about goalies, but he really does have like a sense of humor and a kind of
he's really good. But we're about 18 minutes over our timeline here. But
there's always a way
to know, Chris, where can they reach you on social media? Where can they reach you on Twitter, Instagram? Where can they reach you?
Okay, the fun part is because I can't do Instagram legitimately because for some reason my account got caught in some weird pandemic limbo of sorts.
Yeah, mine's doing the same thing right now.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't ask. Eventually, it'll come back to me.
Yep.
But until it does, you can always follow me on Twitter at Chris Wassel DFS. You can ask me questions anytime, morning, noon, or night. I'm probably awake. And if I'm not awake, I'm eventually going to be. So it's one of those things where it's like hang tight because this time of year, there is no off season. And I won't see one until about, I don't know. That first that first NHL bye week next season, it will feel like that.
Vampire people, and you can reach him if you look below his picture. It's got his hashtag right there, so just follow him on there. He's got such a plethora of information. You've shown me a lot, Chris, and you've shown Joe a lot. It's been fantastic having you on here. It's been eye-opening for sure for your information. It's been awesome.
I can't thank everybody enough because I have no ego in this business. Although there's that alter ego thing, you'll see it pop up every so often. There's two of them actually. One's some pesky like injury ninja that pops up and players magically get hurt. And the other one that you'll probably see as more playoff teams get eliminated is that annoying nightmare bear. I don't know where he comes from, but he comes and dashes the hopes of playoff teams. It's awful. I don't know where he comes up with his one-liners from, but they're really mean and nasty.
Well, I cannot wait for those, Chris. Everyone goes to Chris.
People. I actually had a member of a PR department of a certain team, maybe 5-6 years ago. And I quote, "You do that again, we will get a cease and desist order on you." And I'm like, for what? First off, I was like, it's not me. And they're like, what do you mean it's not you? I was like, it's an alter ego. So I tried to say it with as straight of a face as I could. And it just didn't work.
So Chris, towards the end of the second round, can you come back on the show?
I can absolutely come back on.
Yeah, we'd love to have you again towards the end of the second round so we can go through like the third round and see what's going on from there because you've been fantastic. And your information is absolutely ridiculous. I thought I knew a lot about hockey, and then Chris made me feel like an idiot. So
I played too many years. That's the problem.
Well, I played a lot of years too, but
people don't believe it just because it's like, oh, he's like 140 soaking wet now. It's like, oh no, I still hit people with Scotty Farrell found out the one night the hard way. I ran into him at a Penguins Devils game, and I almost knocked him over. And he's just like, Wassel?
Before, after
yeah.
the turkey legs.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'd love to have you back on here. So, like, we got to have you in the second round some point. Whenever you're free, Joe, call back here. We'll get it figured out.
Just let me know.
Yeah,
your people will talk to me, and it's like, and I'll
I don't have any people.
Yeah, that's what I always joke about. People are like, well, how do we get a hold of you? And it's like, I have this thing called a phone. See, this slightly cracked thing.
I also want to get my 9-year-old on here because he's a huge hockey fan. He knows all numbers of most teams, their players. He would love to talk to you.
Oh, I enjoy that. I mean, and it's not just because I'm relatively old. All right.
Well, we're about the same age.
People don't believe I'm 46.
Oh yeah, you look younger than that.
They just don't believe it. I mean, I was joking with Joe. I was like, there might be a slight thunderstorm issue tonight. And I look up and I look out my window and it's completely black at about 7:00. I mean, it's pitch black. And then nothing.
Yeah.
Like
nothing. They called for it in Okotoks. They said thunderstorm warning and they had the warnings out and nothing happened. So
just missed us. Now, if I went down the shore, Jersey Shore, they had like 70-mile-per-hour winds.
Wow.
Like not even 20 minutes from my house.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll take it. I need it to rain just so it washes all the pollen off my car. So when I go to play hockey this weekend, I'm sitting there and not having to worry about is this going to wash off my car, because it literally the pollen and the sap sticks to your car like glue. So
yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I'd love to get you down here, Chris, to play some beer league with us, and maybe we'll do that one day once COVID lifts. We'll have you down here to do that for sure. Again, guys, Rotoballer, follow Chris. He knows what he's talking about. He knows his stuff, so keep doing that.
Okay, you guys have a fantastic night. Thank you so much again, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Just so much. Your information has been absolutely ridiculous. Good job.
Thank you so much, Joe and Cammy. I appreciate it, Tom.